We are able to send requests from the client or browser to Node, but there is no way to do it in reverse. There is no way for Node to tell one or more clients, hey, there's a new message. So the only way to achieve this behavior with HTTP requests is to do something called polling. With polling, every few seconds we send an HTTP request asking the server, hey, are there any updates? Are there new messages I should display? And we check over and over. It would be much better if the server could just tell the client when a new message comes in, without the clients having to constantly check. You can think of it as a bunch of kids in a van asking the parents every minute, hey, are we there yet? The parents might plead with the kids to stop asking at one point, and that they will tell the kids when they arrive instead of them asking. This is how WebSockets work, and we will be using a WebSocket library called Socket.io that works for both the browser and for Node. With Socket.io, we will be able to notify clients or the app running in the browser when another user has sent a chat message. That way, the app will update their message list instantly. You might have heard of push notifications, where a server pushes an update or message to a client or multiple clients. This works the same way. The nice thing about the Socket.io library is that if a browser is older and does not support WebSockets, it will default back to polling, and it has that functionality built in, so it will always work, even if it's not as efficient with older browsers. So let's begin by installing Socket.io with npm. So I've opened up a new terminal, and I'll use npm install -s socket.io. Setting up Socket.io is a bit trickier than most of the other packages. That's because it needs to tie in with Express. And the game plan is that we'll create a regular HTTP server with Node that will then share with Express and Socket.io. So let's open up our server.js. And first, let's set up that HTTP server. So below line 3, let's add var HTTP require. Then we'll use the HTTP library from Node, and we'll call .server on the require itself and pass in our Express app. Then let's create IO and set it to require socket.io, and we'll pass in reference to HTTP. Now that Socket.io is set up on the backend, let's set it up for the front end. So let's open up our index.html, and at the bottom of the script tags, after line 5, we'll add a new script tag and set source to /socket.io/socket.io.js. And now let's check our web page for any errors. So I'll refresh, and we can see that we are getting an error, and we're unable to find the socket.io JavaScript file we included. The problem is that we can't directly serve our backend with just Express any longer. We will use the Node HTTP server, so that way both Express and Socket.io will be running. So inside our server.js, we can do that by replacing our existing listen code on line 25 with HTTP listen instead. Let's save that and give it another try in our browser. So I'll refresh. We're no longer getting an error. And if we look at the network tab, we can see we're getting the socket.io JavaScript file. Next, let's go down to the script element in our HTML file and initialize socket.io. So at the top of our script tag, we'll create a variable called socket and we'll set it to io. This initialization will also try to make a connection to the Socket.io server at the same URL that the current page is being hosted on. Let's set up a callback for the socket connection event that will let us know whenever a new user connects. So let's save this and then go into our server.js file, and below our post messages, we'll add io.on, and we'll check for the connection event, and we'll supply a function that takes in a socket. And for now, let's console.log user connected. Let's save that. Let's open up our terminal and go to our NodeMon. Then let's refresh our page. And now back in NodeMon, we can see that a Socket.io connection has successfully been made from the browser since we're getting a message in the connection event, and we can see a user connected in our console. Next, let's look at how to create a message event to update all of the clients at once.